Hello, welcome to the Health In Show, an affiliate program of Homeopathy World Community. You've come to the right place to tune in and participate with your comments and questions. Love is the greatest healer of all. But sometimes, in order to change our emotions, we must take action in other spheres of our lives. We speak with experts in alternative and complementary health fields and hope you will benefit in some small or great way. Remember, you are wherever your thoughts are. Make sure your thoughts are where you want to be. We're moving right into today's show with a meditation, calming our hearts, minds, and spirits. We are together today with many viewers out there who are interested in healing their children, healing their families. We're going to learn from Mary Aspinwall, homeopath, and we are going to also have on the line Dr. Deepak Sharma of New Delhi, the Orbits Clinic. Our other co-host, Phyllis Georgic, won't be with us today, and we welcome you to either put some comments or questions in the chat or call in, if you're in the United States, at 919-518-9773 or via Skype internationally to Computers 2K Voice. And we are really, really fortunate and very lucky to have Mary. I have woken her up today. She is not a morning person. And also, I want to thank everybody. I had a lot of retweets on Twitter and shares on Facebook to let folks know about today's important show. Mary tells me that she's very proud of her Anglo-Irish heritage. And she has studied homeopathy for 5 years while she lived in London, and she also lived in, besides England, Ireland, Spain, before she moved to California, the USA, and I guess it was 2008. She presently works in downtown Santa Barbara at the Holistic Health Center, and also, as many of the telehealth people today are doing via Skype. Mary is well known for her website called www.homeopathyworld.com, and she has designed many homeopathic kits for specialty use. She has written the Basic Guide to Homeopathy and edited the Clinical Medical Guide. She writes regularly a column for Homeopathy Today, a magazine that you would get if you joined the National Center for Homeopathy, and I hope everybody does. You don't have to be a professional homeopath to do so. She is an expert contributor on Homeopathy Radio. She did a show with us last year, April, on infertility and fertility in today's world. And she also has been on the show, a guest on Mike Adams' Natural News. So she is getting the news about homeopathy really out there today. Dr. Sharma, do you have any introductory words for us this morning or tonight for you?
Yes, definitely. It was really a great show we are doing on the autism. And I found treating in the autism case that it may be misdiagnosed with the autism. So we do not think that autism is really a culprit. It may be treated. I found in one children that he suffered from the vitamin B12 deficiency only. And when I give the doses of vitamin B supplements, he was fine, and the diagnosis was incorrect. I have the record and data by the doctor who said he is an autistic child. Now he says, oh wow, how it happened that an autistic child is coming into the normal. So we do not consider autism is a culprit.
We are learning so much about autism today. There's a lot more to learn. I just pulled up a brand new research article that autism affects different parts of the brain in women and men. Not as much research has been done for the females because the majority of people diagnosed with autism are males. And I believe, Mary, you're going to start us off with some statistics.
Yes, and they're kind of shocking statistics, and it makes me wonder why they get so little attention in the mainstream media. Last year, in 2012, around April time, which was Autism Awareness Month, the CDC held a very quiet press conference where they announced that 1 in every 88 children is now diagnosed as autistic, and 1 in every 54 boys. Now, those statistics would be shocking enough, but actually they are figures from 2008. And so if you extrapolate those figures and have the increase going on at the same rate, some people think that the true rate for boys might now be 1 in 29. That's a guesstimate based on the rate continuing as it had been. Which means that pretty much every classroom in the US would have an autistic child in it. Now the CDC tries to gloss over these atrocious figures by saying that the rates of autism have only soared because doctors and healthcare professionals are just much, much better at identifying and diagnosing the milder forms of autism. But if you go on to forums where parents of autistic children communicate with one another, you will get a completely different story, and one that really doesn't ever make it through very much to the mainstream media. And what parents of autistic children are saying is that the increase is totally real, and they are very kind, compassionate people, because they're already dealing with a huge tragedy in their own family life. But their main concern is to try to protect others and try to alert them and warn them so they don't end up in the same situation. So what they're doing is they're trying to connect with pregnant women, with parents of young children, and trying to wake them up. Now, I read a lot of these forums. I'm very interested in what's happening in the autism community. And I came across something that was written by a woman called Cam Baker-Pearson. And I'm going to take quite a bit of time to read what she wrote because it's extraordinary. I have read many, many descriptions of children who slid into autism, but her description of what happened to her son is so eloquent and so detailed and so wonderful that I really think it bears sharing with you. And of course, you can get the full version online if you Google "How I Gave My Son Autism" by Cam, C-A-M, Baker, B-A-K-E-R, Pearson, P-E-A-R-S-O-N. So she begins, "There are things I've done for which I know God forgives me. However, I'm pretty sure that I will never forgive myself, for my transgressions are embodied in a beautiful 7-year-old who tells me daily that I am the best mom in the universe. I know the truth, and someday so will he. All of these unforgivable actions were done with the best of intentions, but we all know what they say about good intentions and the road to hell. I am admitting here for all the world to see, I gave my son autism. I did it, me, and no one can ever take that away. So how did I give my son autism? I wish I could say it was one thing that I could take back that would make things neat and easy. But it wasn't. It was mistake after mistake, assault after assault. The following are the biggest mistakes I made to which I attribute my son's descent into autism. Ultrasounds. I had at least 5 while I was pregnant. I was assured they were completely safe. Heck, you can get ultrasounds in malls. So I assumed they were pretty benign. Wrong. Research shows populations exposed to ultrasound have a quadrupled perinatal death rate, increased rates of brain damage, nerve cell demyelination, dyslexia, speech delays, epilepsy, and learning difficulty. Sounds familiar? 2. High fructose corn syrup. I drank Coca-Cola every single day I was pregnant. I was so incredibly nauseous and it made my stomach feel better. Fast forward a few years and Coca-Cola Classic was found to have one of the highest levels of mercury due to high fructose corn syrup of any product tested. I didn't eat one bite of fish during my pregnancy for fear of mercury. But what I didn't know was there was mercury in the Coke. I have to be honest and admit, of course, I knew that eating and drinking junk wasn't good for my baby. Lortab, acetaminophen, paracetamol while pregnant. I have fibromyalgia. It is painful normally, but it was practically unbearable while I was pregnant. My OB prescribed Lortab, telling me that it didn't cross the placenta and was perfectly safe. I was in so much pain that I wasn't about to look into this any further. I trusted my OB thoroughly and needed to feel better. Pitocin. 2 of the ultrasounds I received at the end of my pregnancy revealed that my water was dangerously low, so my OB felt that we should induce labour. After several hours of not making progress on the Pitocin drip at low levels, the hospital encouraged me to sign a waiver, allowing them to increase the Pitocin to illegal levels. Now I know that seems absurd, but at the time I was in incredible pain and I was told by hospital staff that it was perfectly safe and was used at these levels all over the country. According to them, Montana just had a very low cap on the highest levels allowed. I had Pitocin for 36 hours. In either induced or enhanced use of Pitocin, the blood supply, and therefore the oxygen source to the uterus, is greatly reduced. With naturally paced contractions, there is a time interval between contractions, allowing for the baby to be fully oxygenated before the next contraction. In induced or enhanced labour, the contractions are closer together and last for a longer time, thus shortening the interval where the baby receives oxygen supply. Reduced oxygen to the baby in labour has lifelong consequences on the baby's brain function. C-section. George Malcolm Morley, OB-GYN, has done extensive research regarding C-sections and autism and has concluded that a baby born by C-section is 3 to 4 times more likely to have autism. His theory is that probably due to immediate cord clamping, and there are really good reasons to believe he may be right. There are so many different elements that play a part in C-sections. However, so it's really hard to determine exactly what specific aspect is problematic. Anesthesia, maternal immobility, labor trauma, cord clamping, post-operative drugs, lack of friendly bacteria due to not passing the vaginal canal. These are all suspect individually, and it's easy to see how a combination of all of those could have a really negative impact. Because I had made the bad decision about ultrasounds that led to the bad decision about Pitocin, that led to the labor trauma, I ultimately did have an emergency C-section. 36 hours of drug-induced hell, and I still ended up with a C-section. And not just a regular C-section. It was an emergency that I had to be anesthetized for via general anesthetic, even though I had already had an epidural in place. Number 6 on her list, antibiotics. Oh boy, where to begin? I have so many mixed feelings about antibiotics. Here is what I know. My son was exposed to antibiotics while he was in distress during labor. He was then exposed for the first 2 weeks of his life via breast milk. He then received 5 courses of antibiotics before he was 1 year old for chronic ear infections. While this is bad cumulatively, the one event that stands out for me and literally makes me feel sick was a single dose of Augmentin when he was 6 months old. At his 6-month well visit, he was diagnosed with his second ear infection. He received vaccinations for 7 different diseases despite being ill, and we left with a prescription for amoxicillin. 6 days later, he had developed an upper respiratory tract infection, and the ear infection was also worse. Because the amoxicillin hadn't worked, the pediatrician prescribed a course of Augmentin. After 1 dose of this drug, and within 24 hours, my 6-month-old baby had 35 acidic liquid bowel movements. The skin literally peeled off his bottom in sheets. I have never seen anything like it, and I haven't since. The pain that he was in was beyond description. I called the doctor and she changed the antibiotic to yet a different kind. So he had 3 different types of antibiotics in his system within 8 days. This episode was the biggie. His gut was never the same after that, and nothing else was. Here is what everyone should know about augmentin. Augmentin has been implicated in autism. It is comprised of amoxicillin and clavulanate potassium. When it is manufactured, the clavulanic acid is fermented, which involves large amounts of urea/ammonia. Even a small amount of ingested ammonia can cause gut and brain inflammation, and I strongly urge you to do your homework before ever using this drug. On the big article that you'll find if you Google how I gave my son autism, you will actually see all the references to the research that she did subsequently, and you can read all of the links. And now the final assault, number 7, vaccines. I really don't even know what to say about vaccines other than to say that if I had it to do over again, my children would not have received a single one. Of everything I did wrong, if I could have my pick of one thing that I could take back, it would be the shots. I got a new MD, and he looked at my son's blood work and did some heavy metal testing. And he informed me unequivocally that my son was vaccine injured and that he had never been a candidate for vaccination. She said that because of my fibromyalgia and the fact that autoimmune disease and digestive disorders are pervasive across both sides of our family, he should never have been vaccinated. Add in the birth history and the fact that he had severe jaundice, rushes, reflux, chronic rhinitis, ear infections, eczema. It should have been very apparent that his immune system was not functioning properly. And vaccination requires a properly functioning immune system to work, which may explain why he had zero titers to the diseases that he was immunized against. According to the CDC and the vaccine inserts, children should not be vaccinated if they are sick or on antibiotics. My son was sick and on antibiotics for almost every single round of vaccinations. I am fully aware that there are children with autism who weren't vaccinated, and I am not suggesting that vaccines are solely responsible for every child's autism. I know, however, that they caused irreparable damage to my son's immune system, which ultimately led to his autism. There, done. The final thing that she mentions is fluoride. And the irony is her water wasn't fluoridated, but she went out and bought bottles of fluoridated water. And it says here, fluoride contains fluorine. Fluorine is only slightly less toxic than arsenic and is more toxic than lead. It's a carrier molecule. It loves to combine with other materials and create even more toxic situations. It can cross the blood-brain barrier. So, for example, if there's circulating aluminium in your body, say, and you have vaccine adjuvants, for instance, or there's lead in your water pipes, the fluoride can attach itself to those toxins and escort them right across the blood-brain barrier and into the brain. So this is her list. She adds a few more things. This
poor woman, Mary, this poor woman. She's going on with this litany, this enormous list. I know her intention is to inform the public, to create awareness, to let people know don't make these mistakes. It sounds like she really researched all the potential causes, because when a child is diagnosed, you want to know, what did I do wrong? How can I repair it? What can I do to fix the situation for my child? And so one after the other, it sounds like, a trauma to her. And that's why she's blaming herself and could probably use some counseling to get over this. I
would love to get in touch with her and offer her some homeopathic help. I think what I love about the autism community is their generosity of spirit and how they go out of their way to try to alert other parents. so that other parents don't go through the hell that they're going through. And if you imagine what we have now is a system where the media is controlled by interests that are interested in the bottom line, and they do not want this information out in the public domain. And so these parents try valiantly to get their message across through social media, through press conferences, through speaking to Congress.
Chat boards.
Yeah, parents are amazing. They just have my total admiration, as if they don't have enough on their plate dealing with sick children, with insurance companies that don't support them, with educational systems that don't support them, and they still find time to try and warn the rest of us. Incredible people.
They have to have an incredible amount of patience and stamina for dealing with these children, and it is autism affects 1% of the general population, and as I said before, is more prevalent in males. So most of the studies have been done for males, and maybe there are different levels of this, how it exemplifies itself, how it shows itself, and maybe girls are actually having this problem, but have found ways to compensate, perhaps through self-acknowledgement and understanding.
Yeah.
So
I just think it's very interesting, because if you can, when you hear what Cam has written, she's saying that there were all these warning signs along the way, that there was a family history of eczema and immune problems and digestive disorders. But she didn't know. She didn't know that those were red flags. She didn't know that she had to be extra careful with her diet and with her medical choices. She just had no idea, and she thought that she was doing the right thing all the time. She was getting professional medical advice and trusting it and not doing her own research. And she just did all these things in good faith. It's a very, very sad story, but I think it's the reason why I read it out is I hope that there will be people who will watch this, who will alert people who are pregnant, who will alert people who have young children, and spare them this terrible, terrible misery.
And if you're a new parent, you really have no idea what you're going to be getting into. You just pray and hope that things are going to be good, and you will have an easy pregnancy and an easy delivery, and that you will have your family about you to support you, and everything will be fine. Not realizing perhaps that you do have a family susceptibility, which is what Hahnemann would say. Who are the sensitives? And you're going to talk to us today. Did you finish about fluoride?
I did finish about fluoride.
Okay.
The really sad thing about Cam's story is that her water wasn't fluoridated. And, she actually went out and bought this special fluoridated water that is sold to people for babies. And this is crazy. And
she's not the only one, because I was living in a community at the time that did not have fluoridated water, and I was taking prenatally fluoride pills, and I was giving them to my daughter when she was born.
Yeah, she says it's called nursery water. It comes in cute little plastic bottles with pictures of Bert and Ernie and the Cookie Monster on them.
Oh my!
It's terrible, and she makes the point, which I think is a really, really good point. She said, if you read any fluoride toothpaste, it says that if your child has accidentally eaten some fluoride toothpaste, it can be fatal, and you have to go to the poison control center.
Yeah.
You have to immediately go to ER. So they know this is poisonous.
It's true. So. They do know it, and I think it's probably just based upon quantity. They're thinking, not realizing that sensitive.
If you're giving it every day in water, and then maybe your child's brushing with a fluoride toothpaste, and it's a toxin, toxins accumulate in the system. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about that issue of sensitivity.
Yeah. Well, what I was thinking about Cam's story is, let's just envisage that Cam, when she got pregnant, or maybe a few months before she got pregnant, heard about homeopathy. how different her story could have been, and that's why you and I and many homeopaths are out there trying to get through the media blackout about homeopathy, trying to tell people how amazing it is. Because I discovered homeopathy shortly. I guess I discovered homeopathy first when I was about 19, but I rediscovered it.
I'm sorry, may I interrupt for a moment? Because
sure.
Someone had been asking from the beginning of this show at what age a child could be diagnosed with autism. I guess maybe we would need to know what the signs are so we can recognize it.
For many people, it seems to be around 18 months to 2 years is the time that they get the formal diagnosis. But there are things that people notice ahead of that. Dr. Sharma and I were just talking about it. So things that people typically notice is that children lose vocabulary. If you go on a site called thinktwice.com, you'll find thousands of stories that parents have submitted about what happened to their children, many of them after vaccination. So what they notice is that the child lost vocabulary, began to sort of do flapping movements with their hands, began to walk on tippy toes, didn't make good eye contact anymore. These are things that people initially notice.
Loss of verbal skills.
Loss of verbal skills, yeah, they lose vocabulary. So those are things that people typically notice. And then sometimes there's a period where the parents are just, oh my God, this can't possibly be true. So there's a little period of denial. Sometimes they even delay going to get the formal diagnosis, which is understandable because it's a heartbreaking diagnosis to receive. But what I would encourage anyone to do is if they have any suspicion at all, to use the precautionary principle. And by that I mean really examine and research every medical, pharmaceutical choice you make, because those are the early red flags, and it's easier to turn a situation around if you pay attention to those early red flags rather than if you just plow on and just do what everybody else is doing in terms of vaccination schedules or giving antibiotics, to really pay attention.
Okay, we have a lot of people on the chat today, and we really appreciate your comments. There is a woman named Ikarika who says that she is a speech therapist and now a health coach, and has noticed that with working with enough people, enough children, you can really diagnose and know earlier than 18 months. And that nutrition is the most important thing, and you're probably going to talk about that.
Yeah, I think she's right. One of the things that a lot of people who successfully recovered their children from autism did was that they got help from a naturopathic doctor, had a lot of very detailed blood work done, went on programs of supplementation, changed the diet, dropped the gluten, dropped the casein, dropped the sugar. These are all extremely helpful things to do. And again, the earlier that you can do it, even if you remotely suspect there may be an issue, just do it immediately. Because I think that time is of the essence when you're dealing with this situation. And what you saw in Cam's situation was that the early mistakes were compounded and compounded and compounded. So what I wanted to get back to saying was that when I was pregnant, I rediscovered homeopathy, which I had initially used very successfully when I was in my late teens, early 20s. And I'm so grateful that I had homeopathy during my pregnancy. It was so helpful to me. I remember having chronic constipation at one point that was helped by Nux vomica. I remember having terrible nausea that was helped by sepia. I remember the baby, my daughter Martha, was in the transverse lie position, which the doctors didn't like at all. And I took pulsatilla, and she turned the same day to a head down position. So it was a huge help to me. And I feel like women don't know about homeopathy in pregnancy. They don't know that there's this amazing resource there for them, that they can actually get relief from the situations that occur during pregnancy, and at the same time not cause any risk to their child. So what I did last year or the year before, I created a book called Homeopathy and Pregnancy. It's an ebook, and it's free on my site. So if you go to homeopathyworld.com/blog, and you look on the right-hand side of that page, it says free resources. There's a free ebook on homeopathy. There's a free ebook on homeopathy in pregnancy. There's a free online training course on how to use homeopathy at home. And I would really recommend everybody who is pregnant or has a young family to get that stuff, read it. It's short and sweet. I know everybody's really busy and there are a lot of calls for our attention, but I think the whole thing, you could read all of those books and do the course in about 3 or 4 hours, something like that. So,
3 or 4 hours. That's a quick book.
I try to be really
training.
quick. Everyone is busy and everyone is snowed under by content. So
yeah.
I'm always trying to, how can I say things in the shortest, sweetest, clearest way? And that's I think that's my role, is the bridge between us as professional homeopaths and the public. I just try to simplify, and I try to let the public know what's safe for them to do at home and where they might want to get some professional help.
Okay, and we have a caller.
Okay, great.
Who is, state your name and give us your comment and question, please.
My name is Margaret.
Hi, Margaret.
Hey, Margaret.
Hi. I spoke to Carrie last night, Carrie Sikowski, and she recommended that I call you. I have some kind of a mite in my eye, and she had told me it's in the membrane behind the retina, and I had asked her if there's a safe, non-toxic cure. I don't have insurance at this moment.
Okay.
And I
Margaret, if you would like to give me a call this afternoon, my number is 805-701-5927. We can have a chat about that, because I'm conscious that a lot of people are on this call to find out about autism for their kids. And so I'd like to stick to that subject, but I'm totally happy to chat to you later on today. If you could call me anytime after 2 o'clock this afternoon, I'll be free. That's Pacific time. So if you're on Eastern time, it will be 5 o'clock. And then we can have a chat and I can tell you what your options are.
Okay, would you give me the number again, please?
Yes, it's 805-701-5927.
Thanks for calling, Margaret. You know, there's a show on Sunday night with Carrie Sikowski, a psychic cafe, and it's a call-in show. So she gets nonstop calls, and we would love folks to call us in too. Contribute your thoughts and questions about autism and contributing factors, or perhaps what you have, your personal experience.
Yes, if there are any parents of autistic children out there who would like to share their experiences, would be great. I would like to recommend a book called Thinking Mom's Revolution.
Okay.
These are an awesome group of parents. I think it's something like 23 women and 1 dad, and they all shared their stories of their children's autism, and they also shared their stories of how they went about trying to recover their children. On page 16, they give a really nice plug for homeopathy. A lot of sites give homeopathy huge kudos for helping children to return to health, including Regarding Caroline is one, Recovered from Autism is another. If you just do a search with autism homeopathy, you will see a lot of people saying great things about homeopathy. Particularly, people are name-checking cease therapy. Cease therapy was developed by the late Tinus Schmitz, who was a homeopath in the Netherlands. And what he did really was take an old idea of homeopathy, which is isopathy. Isopathy is not similar suffering, but same suffering. So he looked at all the insults and assaults that happened in a person's life, and then layer by layer would go through and address them and turned it into a protocol, which is getting great feedback from parents who say it's been the single most helpful thing that they've done for their children. Look into all of that. It's all out there. It's not just Debbie and I and Dr. Sharma saying homeopathy is great. It's the parents. And, as always, they're doing a great job of trying to communicate that to people to really let them know. And, of course, last week, Debbie, you had on the show the lovely Amy Lansky. And I would highly recommend, if you do have an autistic child, to read Amy's story, Impossible Cure, which is about her son Max's recovery from autism using homeopathy. It's not only a wonderful story of her son's personal recovery, but it's also a great introduction to homeopathy if you're new to it. And Amy writes beautifully and clearly, and she's a great researcher. So the book is an excellent introduction for anyone who finds himself in the position of having an autistic child and wanting to know, well, what can homeopathy do for me?
And she provides lots and lots of hope for us and for the future of all parents. Thinking about quantum mechanics and quantum medicine and the use of homeopathy. So I think maybe you want to let us know a little bit more. For those folks who are really brand new to homeopathy, how it is gentle and people can see the response of the use of homeopathy. Did you already talk about the law of similars?
No, I wanted to just, in a nutshell, say to people that there are three things that if you forget everything else I say,
okay,
if you could remember three things, and maybe even if you have a pen and paper, just jot this down. These are the three things that you need to know to be able to understand homeopathy and use it effectively. First of all is the law of similars. So, for example, our caller Margaret said, I have this mite in my eye, can you tell me a natural way, can you tell me a remedy for it? The answer to that question is probably no, because I need to know every detail of what's going on with Margaret and her eye and her life, and then I can choose a really good remedy. And it's all about the match. So the law of similars is very carefully notice everything about the situation. For example, if you have an autistic child, does the child like to climb? That's a clue. Does the child like to run away and escape? Does the child have trouble and stays awake all night long? Does the child bang his or her head on the wall? It's not just that we're going to give a remedy for autism, it's that we're going to really pay attention to everything the child does and says and likes to eat and how they sleep, every single detail about them, and maybe dreams that they have or things that they express to you. And then we're going to try and find a remedy.
And food likes and dislikes, because
Exactly.
a lot of them, I think, only would take liquids or only...
Yeah, they like soup and sometimes carbs. Strong craving for carbs sometimes. So anyway, you would match that up to a remedy that really fits in as many aspects as possible. And once you do that, then the results are extraordinary. So that's the law of similars. And then next is the law of the minimum dose, which is that you're just going to ignore what's written on the bottles, because it says something crazy like, give 3 or 4 pills every 3 or 4 hours. It's not true. You give 1 pill only, and you wait to see, is it working? And if it's working, you keep out of the way. It's a catalyst. It's a catalyst to wake up your own body's healing ability. And then when your body runs out of steam and needs another little push, another little reminder, that's when you give the next dose. It's totally individualized. It's not routine. You don't repeat every 3 or 4 hours. So that's really important. Homeopathy already is a minimum dose, as we know, because it's, once you get past a 6C, there's less than a molecule there. So it's an energy medicine. It's working on resonance. It's working on matching the frequency of the pathology and bringing about a kind of awakening in the body system to put itself right. And last thing that I would like to tell people about is what's called the direction of cure. And this is especially important for people like Cam, who now, looking at what happened to her son, saw that every choice she made, every medical decision she made, actually left her son sicker, not healthier. And I think people need to know, when they're going through any kind of therapy, be it holistic, alternative therapy, or regular Western medicine, or whatever it is, they need to have some means of measuring and telling if what they're doing is making them healthier or sicker. So I wrote an article about this. If you just Google my name with the word therapy, and it will come up. It's an article I wrote for Jonathan Landsman, who works with Mike Adams on Natural News. It's a really great article for understanding what to look out for. But I will tell you quickly that what you want to see is if you have a superficial symptom, you want to see your symptoms moving from above down. And when it gets to the trunk of the body, you want to see it going out through the arms, and then down through the legs. If you have a deeper level symptom, like something like migraines or digestive problems or kidney problems or something affecting an organ, you want to see things moving from within, from inside your body to the surface. How does it get out? Well, it's going to get out through your orifices. So, homeopaths are very keen on things discharging through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, in stool, in sweat, in eruptions. There are only a certain number of ways your body has to clear stuff out. And when you see that, you know you're on the right track. And then once it does come out, say if a rash comes out on your torso and it starts to move down your legs to your feet and then it leaves, then you know everything is moving in the right direction.
Don't start to get a steroid. This is what,
Yeah.
This is what happens. You get your homeopathic remedy, you see an improvement on the mental emotional plane, and then you see the outbreak of eczema or rash or something going on, and the child's itching and a little bit uncomfortable. You take the child to the doctor, get a steroid, put some cortisone on, and bam, you're back where you started again.
I try to talk to my clients, at the beginning. I say, if this happens, we should celebrate, If we get a rash, we should celebrate. If goop comes out of your child's ear, we should celebrate. I wrote an article about that. If you look at homeopathy and phobias on my blog, you'll read this amazing article about this child of 7 that I treated who had terrible phobias. And he had 100 antibiotics in 7 years, and always to suppress ear infections. And so I said to the mom, if a load of goop comes out of his ears, you should dance in the street.
Yay.
And sure enough, a load of goop came out of his ears, foul-smelling, disgusting goop. And he was much better, and he lost his phobias. So definitely it's true that you do, people talk about complementary medicine, but let's be honest. If I give a remedy to clear somebody's system out, and then someone uses a steroid cream, how is that complementary? It is not complementary. So just be careful about that whole idea of mixing the two systems, because we're operating on very different paradigms. Holistic medicine and homeopathy is about bringing everything out to the surface and having it be gone and dealt with for good and all. Western medicine is about getting rid of symptoms. It sees symptoms as the problem. Let's suppress that symptom. Let's not even think about the consequences of suppressing that symptom. Let's just do it. Let's just get rid of it. So I give the example to my clients that in that movie Dr. Dolittle, I'm showing my age now because it's an old movie, but there was this two-headed llama called a push me pull you. So, one head wanted to go one way, the other head wanted to go the other way, and the animal never got anywhere. And that's what it's like if you combine suppressive medicine with holistic medicine, in my opinion. That's what you end up with. You spend a lot of money, you spend a lot of time, and you don't get anywhere. So I want to carry on a little bit and talk. Sorry, I forgot one more thing about direction of cure, is that you go backwards in time. So this is what's so interesting about cease therapy and about treating autistic children is I can give you an example of, I treated a girl with autism who got autism after her MMR shot. She lost all her vocabulary. She startled very easily. If she heard a loud noise, she would just run in fear and terror. And, one time nearly ran into traffic, often tried to escape from her parents when she was in that very scared state. Sat all day playing with a huge telephone directory, just sort of flicking the directory constantly. No eye contact.
How would you put a rubric into that? Sits and opens. What do you do with that?
I think you go to the mind section and there's involuntary gestures. I'm just trying to think. I think in the end, the remedy that I gave her was silica, which everybody knows is a great post-vaccination type remedy. And I came to silica because of her personality that her parents described before and after the problems with the MMR, which was that she hated to do new things.
Oh.
She just, which is a silica keynote. So anyway,
I'm thinking silica has the rubric counting pins.
Yes.
And so if she was sitting in the telephone with the telephone book, like looking at every page, it might have been a little bit analogous.
She was actually flicking them really fast. She was just doing with the edge. But what happened, and this is why I want to tell the story in relation to the direction of cure, was that after she had the MMR, she had a very, very high fever, very, very high. This is a story that you see repeated over and over and over. And because there's a misunderstanding about fevers are actually the body trying to throw off stuff that's toxic. The fever was suppressed with medication. And so I did say to the mom, if we get a good remedy, it's very likely that the fever will return. And you're going to have to sort of tough it out. And we talked about some ways that you can work with fever. And if anyone's interested in that, you go to my site and just type in homeopathy and fever, and you can read out about that. But so she did. She toughed it out. She tried to unlearn what she'd been told about fevers and let the child have a high fever. And her vocabulary returned. She made a full recovery. And that was actually my most amazing case that I had. And I think it was a combination of the fact that it was caught very early on, the fact that the mom had other holistic health support as well as homeopathy, the fact that the mom was prepared to allow the fever to run its natural course, and it was a complete recovery. Now, I've seen other cases where I've treated people much later, and I've been able to help with sleep, or with issues of violence, or with issues of running away, but not necessarily, there are too many years gone by and too much is lost to really recover somebody at that stage. That's why I'm encouraging people to really start the process as early as you notice any sign.
Right, so it's best to get going with the parents prenatally.
Yes.
To work with their hereditary tendencies.
Absolutely.
And then educate yourself to know what are the possible triggers, and if you see anything starting up in that susceptibility to your family, you have to get empowered and say, I don't think we want to do such and such. What are my options? And do you want to talk?
Remember that you are when you are at the doctor's, you are a consumer. You don't have to do what the doctor tells you. You can go away, you can research, you can make an informed choice. It's totally in your hands. So don't give away your power. Research. I mean, we're so lucky now that we have the internet, that we have means of checking out things and finding out what other people are saying, what their experiences have been. Because otherwise, especially with the kind of media blackout that I was talking about earlier, it would be extremely difficult to get this information.
Right. Well, did you want to show how you can prepare the remedy for really sensitive children? I think this is going to be great. You're going to talk to us about this.
I really wanted to show everybody in the autistic community this thing, and also to show anybody who's got a child that's sensitive, that has food allergies or other allergies. One of the issues with homeopathy is we deliver homeopathy in pilule form, and it can either be Saclac, which is saccharin and lactose, or it can be sucrose typically. So I just want to turn around a minute and just grab, this is one of the homeopathic kits that I designed. It's got 36 remedies and a little booklet on how to use it. And what I like about this kit is it really covers all the first aid emergencies, and it also covers all the minor illnesses, food poisoning, flus, coughs, colds, that kind of thing.
Well, something's missing from it.
Huh?
One of the remedies is missing from it.
Oh, that's because my son is a skateboarder, and his friend last night, he had a little accident and really bashed his hip, and the bone was bruised. So the remedy that's missing is Ruta.
Oh.
Because I left it with him. He's staying the night with us. I left it with him on his bedside table in case he needed some in the night for the pain. But so usually there are 36 remedies. Gets a lot of use in our house with the skateboarders. And it's sucrose. Now, many people have said to me, "Oh, I can't use that because," and they very wisely have put their child on a casein-free, gluten-free, sugar-free diet, which is perfect. You should definitely do that. So how do you use sucrose in that situation? So I'm going to show you. So you can take a jar of water. Here I have a small jar. You drop 1 pillule into it, and you give one tiny sip of the water, or use a teaspoon to give a tiny amount of the water. Now, homeopathy, as we know, is kind of backwards. It's like when you dilute it and what we call succuss it, which is this, shaking and bashing, it actually becomes more potent, not less potent. So you don't need to worry about the remedy getting less potent. It's actually going to be slightly more potent in water. And you only have to give a tiny sip to the child, and it will still have the same effect if it's the correct remedy. The main thing is you have to match it up and get the right remedy. So this is what I would suggest. You put 1 pillule in the water. You do this, which is succussing. And what you have there with dilution and succussion, you create potentization. Now, let's say your child is super, super sensitive, and you really, really wanted to be sure that there was very little sucrose getting through to your child. It doesn't matter what size you use. You could use a jar this big. Whatever you want. Even bigger. Doesn't matter. It will still work. So that's something good to know. It's also a great way to make your kit or your homeopathic remedies that you've bought last a long time. So I always say to my clients, if their kid is having a minor illness episode, that you create one of those, you give the bashes between each teaspoon that you give, and it just means you're only using 1 pillule for the whole of that episode, because the water will stay good for about 5 days, and before you would need to make another batch.
Dr. Sharma.
So yes, Mary, what size of pillule you are using to dilute?
Pillule? It's in my kits they're sucrose.
Okay.
Do you mean what size?
Yes.
Oh,
in
I don't
India, we are using
I'm
the
sorry, I don't
different
remember the
kind
size, but if I can hold up a bottle, it's a 2-gram vial, and it holds 36 pills. So can you tell me what the size is? I don't remember.
Okay. Because in India we are using the different kind of pills, like 20 number of pills, 30 number of pills, and 40 number of pills. So I think it was the 20 number of pills.
You think this is a 20?
Yes, I think it's 20. The number 10 is this tiny.
I feel homeopathy is a very forgiving modality, and people sometimes get a little stressed about how much water you use, how many pilules you use, how many granules you use. But here's the thing, if it's the right remedy, it's pretty much unstoppable. And I don't think people should get too het up about it. In my opinion, it works anyway.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I have one more question. Do you got any relation between the autism and the child born with the in vitro fertilization?
In vitro fertilization.
I've seen many problems after in vitro fertilization, and I am not a fan. And Debbie and I did that show with you last April, where I really encourage people to have in vitro fertilization be their absolute last resort, and to try all sorts of other things ahead of it, because I think it may be implicated in autism, I'm not sure. It's certainly implicated in a lot of other things that you probably not wish for your child if there were another way that you could conceive naturally. And I think, again, people don't know that they have alternative options. They just directly go into IVF as their first choice, and it's not a good first choice.
Definitely. Thank you.
One of the things I do know about in vitro fertilization is that early research showed, I'm sorry, I don't remember the research, I think it was done in Europe, seemed to suggest that there was infertility in
India,
boys.
Yes.
Infertility
What
in
I
boys.
found in many cases, born with the IVF, the children are very irritated. They are very selfish in nature. I found in 2 or 3 cases right now, but I am just reconsidering all the symptoms in the IVF baby especially.
Yeah, I do treat a lot of IVF babies, and I think that they have more problems health-wise than perhaps babies conceived naturally, which is understandable. Yeah. Okay, so I notice I have like 5 minutes left. I just would like to just very quickly go through some sort of advice checklist thing, and then hopefully we might even have some time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. But so very quickly, I would like people to research fevers. So on my site, Homeopathy and Fever, I would like anyone who has a sensitive or autistic child to get advice on diet, to try to create for them a stress-free environment with minimal electronics and proper rest. I would like anyone who has any concerns to really make an informed choice about every single medical intervention, whether it's antibiotics, acetaminophen, paracetamol, diflucan, vaccines. Do your research. Don't take anybody's word for it. Read Cam's article because she'll point you in the direction of great research. That's How I Gave My Son Autism by Cam Baker Pearson. I think people generally, when they're in a state of fear or anxiety, they give away their power and they do what they're told. I'm encouraging you not to do that, encouraging you to make your own informed choice. And if you do feel that homeopathy is something that you want to explore, here are some things that I can recommend. I already told you about the free online course and the ebooks at my site, homeopathyworld.com/blog. It's all on the right-hand side under free resources. There's also a very good resource at www.abchomeopathy.com. It's a free online remedy finder. Now, there's a problem with it, which is that it crosses the line into things that are chronic and very serious. So please only use the remedy finder for acute illnesses that come up suddenly, like coughs, colds, flus, cystitis, food poisoning. Do not try to use it for chronic issues because it's really beyond the scope of someone who's working with homeopathy at home. But if you stick to that rule, it's a great free resource. Another great free piece of software that you can use, I think, for several times without having to buy it is Akiva. That's spelled Akiva, and it's by a company called Micant, Miccant. This is an excellent piece of software for helping you to choose the right remedy. I think it would be great for everybody to watch Dr. Oz's recent show where he talks about a homeopathic starter kit. The woman who spoke with him was a Canadian homeopath. She did an excellent job. It's a really nice introduction to homeopathy for newcomers. I would also suggest that you get Miranda Castro's fantastic books. She has a homeopathy for pregnancy in the baby's first year, and she also has the complete homeopathy handbook. Both of them are wonderful books, and she's a great homeopath. And she, like me, has been one of those people that's worked hard to communicate how a homeopath works and how you can imitate that and get great results. So I would really recommend that. And I'd also recommend that, if you have a child that's seriously vaccine damaged, autistic, highly sensitive, has a leaky gut, whatever it might be, see a professional homeopath. And in terms of finding a homeopath, there are a few different ways. If you know somebody who went to a homeopath locally and they were happy, that's your best bet. If you can get a word-of-mouth recommendation, go for that. If you can't, check out people's testimonials online. Check out whether in the US, many people are registered with, they have the letters CCH after their name. I don't have that, but I haven't been in America very long. I haven't done that. But that's another great way to find a homeopath. Another is to investigate the register of CEASE therapists. They're homeopaths who use that protocol that I spoke about earlier, and that's spelled CEASE, CEASE therapy. And if you have any questions, you're very, very welcome to write to me. We're kind of out of time now, but if you want to email me, it's Mary@homeopathyworld, and I'll do my best to answer you this week. I just moved house, but I will try really hard to answer you this week. And that's it.
Right on the dot. Well, we really appreciate all this. You crammed tons of information for everyone, every parent, grandparent, anyone who wants to have an evaluation and has concerns about autism and sensitive digestive problems and just sensitivity all around. I want to thank also Dr. Deepak Sharma for being on the chat and calling in, for Kavitha Kukanor also for plugging away and getting onto the chat, Dr. K and all of our guests and friends and listeners, regulars, to Amnon for producing our show each Monday. We are going to have a Blog Talk Radio show on Thursday with Alan Phillips, who talks to us about legal vaccine issues, and every single week for the past 3 years, or maybe going into the 4th year, about the legalities and having your rights, upholding your rights, and becoming legislatively active. I think that we will have a continued discussion about this issue as the prevalence of autism continues to rise. You can see so many triggers in the environment and nutrition in our food that could cause sensitivities, and then not only the physical manifestations but the emotional, mental, and spiritual manifestations.
I think if people can become more active in the Label GMO campaign, that's extremely important, that we need to make sure our food supply is safe.
Right. Dr. Sharma, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. So it was really a wonderful show, and thank you, Mary. Thank you so much for spreading homeopathy with a single dose, and with this really minor, the loss minimum.
So all of these shows are archived. You can, I'll even be putting them up onto YouTube, so if you want to put them onto your website as an educational tool, or you can send them over here to Nissan Communications. And we appreciate everybody who talks about these shows. Upcoming next is Marilyn Shannon's going to do her Breaking Free show at 1 o'clock with Breaking Barriers, talking to a person who used rowing as their form of strength to get through hardship. And so I encourage you to continue to listen to the show on Nissan Communications. On Sunday, Amnon's here for many, many hours talking about computer issues. And so if you do have computer trouble, or if you just want to talk, he's there. Wishing everyone a lovely week, a peaceful, stressless week with lots of love, creating waves of awareness from Homeopathy World Community. Until next time. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Debbie. Thank you.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays, 9 a.m. till noon. Carrie's Psychic Cafe with Carrie Silkowski, Sundays, 8 till 9 p.m. Health In with Debbie Bruck, Mondays, 11 a.m. till noon. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays, 1 till 2 p.m. Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, the second and fourth Wednesday of each month from 7:30 till 8:30 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays, 9 till 10 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by thatvidblasterguy.com, carolinaapparel.com, and deltaforce.net.